is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. The cry is always the same: we want to be free. This will be the day from every mountainside, let freedom ring. Land of the Pilgrim's Pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. Knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed, Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. That which touches me most is that I had a chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until us. The young people come first. They have the courage where we failed. And if I can but shed some light as they carry us through the gale. The older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until us. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be one in the number as we stand against tyranny. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way our struggle survives. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until us. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. Sometimes I can be quite difficult about to no man's word. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until us.
Good evening and welcome to our third annual Fulfilling the Dream concert. In a time when the forces of division are all around us, we have dared to come together on this night. We've come together because our love for God inspires it. Our commitment to humanity insists upon it, and what we can learn from each other requires it. In spite of our differences, we share many principles which spring forth from the teachings of all our faith traditions and are echoed in and through the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. These principles include a conviction of the fundamental unity of the human family and the equality and dignity of all human beings. They include a realization that might is not right, that human power is not self-sufficient or absolute. They also contain a belief that love, compassion, selflessness, and the force of inner truthfulness and spirit have ultimately greater power than hate and inordinate self-interest. In this place, we are aware of our sense of obligation to stand on the side of the poor, the hungry, and the oppressed, and to serve the cause of justice. In working together with our partners, both near and far, we have found a profound hope that justice will prevail. Tonight, we affirm our commitment to stand as a unified force and as a symbol of what life can be when we co-create our future with God. We are especially grateful tonight for all those who will share Dr. King's message. And through the courtesy of Scott Carter, who brought our special guests this evening, Anna Deavere Smith and Michael Rinder, we will hear important thought leaders call us to not only remember Dr. King's message, but insist we put this message to work in every aspect of communal life. It is our prayer that tonight's experience will prepare us for the work ahead, as together we bend the moral arc of the universe towards justice. May it ever be so.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chasing rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our people sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path
Tell me, where is the road I can call my own, that I left, that I lost so long ago? All these years I have wandered, oh, when will I know? There's a way, there's a road that will lead me home. After wind, after rain, when the dark is done, as I wake from a dream in the gold of day, through the air there's a calling from far away. There's a voice I can hear that will lead me home. Rise up, follow me, come away is the call, with love in your heart as the only song. There is no such beauty as where you belong. Rise up, follow me, I will lead you home.
Sister of my tears, brother of my cries, hand in hand we stand as one. We push, we reach, we rise, we rise, we rise, we rise. Hand in hand we stand as one. We push, we reach, we rise. Sister of my blood, brother of my heart, although the miles they separate us, we can stand apart, 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 apart. Although the miles they separate us, we can stand apart. Sister in my joy, brother in my pain, the burden it is placed on us time and time again, 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 again. The burden it is placed on us time and time again. Sister of my tears, brother of my cries, hand in hand we stand as one. We push, we reach, we rise, we rise, we rise, we rise. Hand in hand we stand as one. We push, we reach, we rise.
My dear fellow clergymen, while confined here in the Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statement. You express a great deal of anxiety over our willingness to break laws. This is a legitimate concern. There are two types of laws. There are just laws and there are unjust laws. Now, what is the difference between the two? Any law that uplifts the human personality is just. Any law that degrades the human personality is unjust. All segregation statutes are unjust because segregation distorts the soul and damages the personality. It gives the segregator a false sense of superiority, and it gives the segregated a false sense of inferiority. To use the words of Martin Buber, the Jewish philosopher, segregation substitutes an I-it relationship for an I-thou relationship and ends up relegating persons to the status of things. So segregation is not only politically, economically, and sociologically unsound, it is morally wrong and sinful. Paul Tillich has said, sin is separation. Is not segregation an existential expression of man's tragic separation? We can never forget that everything that Hitler did in Germany was legal. And everything that the Hungarian freedom fighters did in Hungary was illegal. You spoke of our activity in Birmingham as extreme. At first, I was rather disappointed that fellow clergymen would see my nonviolent efforts as those. As an extremist, I gradually gained a bit of satisfaction from being considered an extremist. Was not Jesus an extremist? For love, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Pray for them that despitefully use you. Was not Paul an extremist? For the gospel of Jesus, I bear on my body the marks of the Lord Jesus. Was not Martin Luther an extremist? Here I stand, I cannot do otherwise, so help me God. Was not John Bunyan an extremist? I will stay in jail for the rest of my days rather than make a butchery of my conscience. Was not Abraham Lincoln an extremist? This country cannot survive half slave or half free. So, the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists will we be? Will we be extremists for hate, or will we be extremists for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice, or will we be extremists for the cause of justice? So maybe after all, the South, the nation, and the world are in dire need of creative extremists.
have a son, I teach him to be brave. 'Cause if I have a son, he's never really safe. And when you run to the corner store for a snack, I wanna know that you'll make it back home. Your skin, it glitters like gold. There's love inside of your soul. But no matter what you say, no matter what you do, this world will never be as friendly to you. I wanna keep you close, I wanna keep you safe. I hope I see the day where I don't have to pray every time you go. Every time you go.
And if I have a girl, I teach her to be strong. 'Cause even when you're right, they'll tell you that you're wrong. And if you want something, you work twice as hard. 'Cause that's the only way we get far, far. Your skin, it glitters like gold. There's love inside of your soul. And no matter what you say, no matter what you do, this world will never be as friendly to you. I wanna keep you close, I wanna keep you safe. Hope I see the day when I don't have to pray every time you go. Every time you go.
I saw a man lose his life, all 'cause his skin looked like mine. I hope the world makes a change, so when you get here it's not the same. Your skin, it glitters like gold. There's love inside your soul. And no matter what you say, no matter what you do, this world will never be as friendly to you. I wanna keep you close, I wanna keep you safe. Hope I see the day where I don't have to pray every time you go. Ooh, every time you go. If I have a son, I teach him to be brave. 'Cause if I have a son, he's never really safe.
There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more waters rising, they will find their way to me. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know.
There are more fires burning, this I know, this I know. There are more fires burning, this I know. There are more fires burning, they will find their way to me. There are more mountains falling, this I know, this I know. There are more mountains falling, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know. I will wade through the waters when they find their way to me. We will wade through the waters, this I know, this I know. We will wade through the waters, this I know.
I will walk through the fire, this I know, this I know. I will walk through the fire, this I know. I will walk through the fire when they find their way to me. I will walk through the fire, this I know, this I know. I will walk through the fire, this I know.
I will rebuild the mountains, this I know, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know.
I will rebuild the mountains when they find their way to me.
I will rebuild the mountains, this I know, this I know. I will rebuild the mountains, this I know.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. No more suffering, no more sorrow. Since I laid my burden down. No more suffering, no more sorrow. Since I laid my burden down. One day soon I'll talk with angels. Since I laid my burden down. One day soon I'll talk with angels. Since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Since I laid my burden. Since I laid my burden down.
This call to justice will speak differently to each of us tonight. Those already engaged in the work and those considering how they might be. Those who found their lane, to borrow language from activist Sean King, and those doing the listening, educational, and examining work of their own privilege and prejudice and perpetuation of injustice. While each call is different, none exists in a vacuum. Each expression is an essential thread woven into a single beautiful garment that makes our dream of a world made new, a world of true peace because of the presence of justice, a reality. As scholar Kimberly Crenshaw said, this work is intersectional. Racial justice is economic justice, is gender justice, is LGBTQ justice, is justice in education, our system of mass incarceration, access to resources for a viable life, and so on. Tonight, each dollar of our ticket purchase and any generous donations given beyond directly support two outstanding organizations, the Pipeline Project and Racial Justice Now. Launched in 2012, the Anna Deavere Smith Pipeline Project draws attention to youth who, through poverty, are vulnerable to becoming embroiled in cycles of incarceration or the school-to-prison pipeline. Racial Justice Now is committed to dismantling structural anti-Black racism, focusing on the institution of education and lifting up the voices of disempowered Black parents and children. They too are dedicated to stopping the school-to-prison pipeline and focus specifically on holding institutions accountable to equitable distribution of resources and services to Black people. Here are some of the ways our congregation and its members are involved here in Los Angeles. We encourage you, wherever you are, to find ways to love your communities this MLK weekend and beyond, never forgetting, in the words of Cornel West, that justice is what love looks like in public.
My soul, and let us journey on. Though the night is dark, and I am far from home, thanks be to God, the morning light appears. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. Have courage, my soul, and let us journey on. Though the night is dark, and I am far from home, thanks be to God. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. The storm is passing over. The storm is passing over. The
From a long line of the rancidest swine came the violators, the cloven foot designers of high crime for the Iron Ages. Twisting down through time, see them trying to unwind creation. Don't be surprised, it's a mistake to think their influence has faded. Well, what a wretched state of danger we've made here. I've thought to me, perhaps explaining years of self-lobotomy. Toxically, perhaps explaining tears or even tears in my cosmology. You numb yourself for years and it can wear upon you, honestly. These old foxes got a lot of plots to outfox us, trying to divvy up and dump in corresponding boxes. How obnoxious. Where the heart and mind connect, expect them targeting. Like archers, you will not travel toward the light if they're in charge of your departure. You think the universe forgot us the way the cursed pitch their product, as though the spirit's not a product that can't be snuffed or turned to dollars, or the expanse across all space can't be contained in one small dollar. Now I see that it's the same moment in history back to honor. And here we are again. Hello boys, long time watcher, first time caller. Every cage built needs an occupant. Got a dead bolt, see him locking it. Had a good run, but they stopping it. Want a Walkman in the coffin lid. Eat your heart out, fiction fan. Truly the truth's a stranger document.
And it's best I've been getting it wrong. And the worst I've been right from the start. It hurts, I've been torn apart. There's a grenade in my heart. The penitent they call. There's a grenade. There's a grenade. There's a grenade.
Let me touch on for a second. At best I feel difficult, but when you pitiful, then every day's like a satanic ritual. Beautiful soul with the rogue and the criminal.
Long as the holy hold on to their principles, kicking and screaming while watching the demons collecting the gold and the diamond residuals. My pastor said God has promised us paradise, living a good life is pivotal.
I promised my mama that I would stay honest, but I wanted all of the physical. And promise I'm honest, I'll probably be punished, cause keeping that promise is difficult. So picture me red as I sit on the bed with my hands on my head and their water.
Why do I need to be miserable? The devils, they do the despicable, and still they move like they invisible.
These filthy criminals sit at the pinnacle, doing the typical, keeping us miserable.
Talking the most and providing the minimal. Hate to sound cynical, but this is pitiful. Time is just critical. Forget the political. This mission is spiritual.
Static in my mind, like sanity on borrowed time. Like right and wrong can't be defined. There's a grenade in my heart, the pin is in the palm. There's a grenade, oh, a grenade in my heart.
Michael Render, a.k.a. Killer Mike, is a Grammy-winning hip-hop artist who's run the Jules album RTJ4. First of all, it should have been nominated for a Grammy. And you just heard a selection from it. He's also an activist who last year received Billboard's magazine first ever Changemaker Award. And I think he got it in part because of this impassioned speech that he did on the floor of the Atlanta City Hall following the murder of George Floyd. And the viral video of that has now been seen by almost 39 million people. So I would like to welcome my friend Michael. I met you in 2015.
Yes.
First time you were on Real Time. Second time you were on Real Time, 2016. I came to your dressing room door and you had a cast on one arm.
Yeah.
And I said, what's this? I said, are you in pain? And you said, well, I can't fight, but I can hug.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, here's a guy I want to work with someday. And my goal is for that to happen this year. So I want to be honest with people at the very beginning here that we're talking on January 8th, and we are in a time of reckoning in our country.
Yes,
we are resolving all sorts of things or trying to come to deal with them. A lot of them have their roots in America's original sin of slavery.
Agreed. Since 1619, we've been reckoning with this sin.
But we have this problem going back to 1619 where we had some structural issues in our house, some pre-existing structural issues that we didn't realize were there. Then we divided the house during the Civil War, and we've never quite gotten it back together again.
And a huge member of the community was never invited into the party to put it back together.
That's right. That's exactly right. And what I always tell people is that you and I end every phone conversation by saying to each other, love and respect.
Yes.
Have a dope day.
Yes.
And I think love and respect should be the Northern Star for us as we try and make our way through this very disorienting time. I mean, we just got through 2020 where the entire nation it was like we were in a timeout or we were under house arrest. How did you get through that? What's the silver lining? Were there some things that you discovered that you didn't know were going to be there?
Well, I've lived on a bus for the last 8 years of my life, buses and planes and hotels. And to put some context to it, I have a 26-year-old son, a 23-year-old daughter, an 18-year-old son, and a 13-year-old daughter. So for most of their lives, I've been on the road. And no matter what spoils you get from your job, you miss your children and you miss your wife at home. You know, oftentimes my wife will come bust it with me, thankfully. But I had missed out on so much of being a father. Not like paying the bills, not like being responsible and having to talk to make sure I keep in contact, but actually the father stuff. The hey man, she needs lunch. School isn't happening. You got to go have lunch. Her mother and I live in separate houses. At my house, you got to go have lunch with Michael. So I got a chance to really enjoy just being a regular dad with a fancy job.
And you said to me a couple of weeks ago that now whenever you make a big decision in your life, you're always factoring in the notion that someday you'll have grandchildren.
Yes.
You're planning for them.
Yeah, my mommy was 16 years old when she decided. Well, she was 15 when she decided she was going to have a child. Her mother wasn't able to have a child until 28. My grandmother, to give you some context, was the granddaughter of an enslaved woman and the granddaughter on her father's side, a paternal side, of someone who was used in the Tuskegee experiment. Her family made enough money sharecropping and to buy their own land, which was a 20-something acre farm in Tuskegee. That farm is still in our family today. So she worked incredibly hard to make sure that her children's children would have something. My grandfather, whose father abandoned him at 10 years old, did much the same. They kept a rental property even when they were married to make sure that they had enough to take us on vacations. So their every thought was on how to make me and my sisters comfortable enough so that we had an opportunity to take advantage of educations and whatever advantages we had, but also to make us independent human beings, to make sure that once we left our house, we wouldn't be in need of them and other people, and we wouldn't have to suffer under the heel of other people simply to exist. And I find myself now as I grow into my 40s, it's like, that's what I want for my grandchildren. And for my grandparents, it was just simple stuff like buying stocks and bonds with Coca-Cola and Delta. It was simple stuff like making sure we had bank accounts. It was simple stuff like making sure we had the opportunity to engage in commerce, ourselves early, encouraging us to do work, get jobs. For my grandkids, I want them to have the opportunity to have, from the time they land on earth, the stability they need to decide truly what they want to be. So it doesn't matter to me as much if they go to college or not. It matters to me that they're traveled and that they're truly educated. It matters to me that they have a skill or something that someone will want. And I know that when you don't have to worry about necessarily where you're going to live or where your next meal is coming from, it makes it easier. I know that spending time with my grandfather made me wiser. I know that spending time with my grandmother made me capable.
Was there faith, if any, in your household growing up? What was it like?
What was faith like in my household? Faith was like, we went to church, Sunday school at our Baptist church we belonged to at 8 o'clock on Sundays. We then would leave our Sunday school. You may or may not do a quick breakfast or something. And then you went to a holiness or a Pentecostal storefront church that my grandmother, I later realized we probably went to because of the music. My grandmother was raised Methodist. She went to a Baptist church, and no criticism, but their music is cool, right?
Yeah.
But when you get the holiness and Pentecostal churches, their music is absolutely jamming. The rhythm section is amazing in holiness churches. So we would spend the next 4 to 6 hours in church, and it would be people prophesizing. It would be heavy prayer. It would be that deep, sweaty, Southern testimonial service that people stereotypically think about in the lower Appalachian Mountains of Tennessee with white folk, and in the middle of Georgia with black folks. It is truly church. So we would do that on Sundays. We would do revivals during the week. We would usually fast on Wednesdays. So very, very structured and spiritual household with my grandmother. My grandfather was a believer in God, but he was not a believer in giving your money to religious institutions. So oftentimes, you know, I would, in particular as a boy, just beg my grandma to let me stay with my grandpa or to go fishing with him or something. So I didn't make every service, but I made more than not.
And I think you and I are a little bit maybe like your grandfather in that, or a combination here in that.
Yeah,
we've got a bunch of things in common. We have the same birthday.
We do.
we're April 20th. We're both asthmatics.
Yes, we are.
and I think, if I can, you tell me if I'm wrong. We believe in God.
We do.
We love Jesus.
Absolutely.
And we have distrust of organized religion.
Absolute distrust.
So, for instance, this church that ceremonies in, which I love coming to it, but I'm not an official member, though I do give time and money. And I don't call myself a Christian because so many people who call themselves Christians too loudly embarrass me, and I don't want to be lumped in with them. But that doesn't stop me from following the scripture of Jesus and to try and take it in and see how my life might be more like the way that he tells us we should live.
Yeah, and you know, and from my stance, whether you are a Pan-Africanist that understands that many of the biblical stories are allegory taken out of Kemetic religion or Cushite, you know, folklore, even, you know, the story of Jesus aligns itself with the story of Isis and Horus. If whether you're a person that believes in the oldest churches of Ethiopia, or where you're a person that believes in any of the prophets from Moses and the Torah to the Prophet Muhammad and the Quran, Jesus is one of the most radical and revolutionary figures in any religion because of his adherence, not to law, not to his adherence to religious indoctrination or ceremony, but in his absolutely adherence to love for his fellow human being. I get chills thinking about it because it is such a monumental task to even attempt to love human beings in that way.
There was one line in, I think it's Marc, book 2, verse 26, where Jesus is talking. He says, Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, he's doing some healing or he's helping somebody. And then these church officials come by and say, it's a Sunday, you shouldn't be doing that. And he goes, wait a minute. Human beings aren't here to fulfill rules.
Absolutely.
Rules are being given to help human beings lead their best life.
Absolutely. Your body needs a day to reset and rest. Your mind needs a day to reflect.
One of the great enemies of the internet.
Yeah, no rest, no turn off.
Cell phones. They have killed Sabbath.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife makes me eat. You know, again, we're non-practicing religious people. My wife, I often joke, I say, you're a witch. You're intuitionist. So she has she's one of those people that doesn't need the book. She has the direct connect to whatever put us here. So, you know, she doesn't let me work on Sundays, much like my grandmother. At 6 o'clock on Saturdays, radios and stuff would go off. It was, you have to give the Lord some time. It was a famous phrase of my grandmother's. And so my wife doesn't, she uses the Sunday like a Sabbath. I'm not allowed to work on Sundays. And communications is friendly. It's community, you know, it's community. Our friends and loved ones come over. We often eat together and drink, but it is a time where she is like, this day is for my husband to relax, to de-stress. It's for him for being with family to recharge the next week. It is not for, you know, it is not for doing stuff. But if there's stuff to be done, let it be right and just stuff. So she has allowed me many times in the past to do things, including but not limited to feeding the homeless, and including but not limited to interviews and campaigns that will help. And I appreciate her for that, because Absolutely. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath.
I remember you tell me one time about, I feel like siestas are mini Sabbaths.
Yes. Yeah. Europe. I want to
You
thank
told
Europe.
me, you told me one time about the first time that you guys toured Europe, and this notion of in the middle of the day, everything's shutting down.
Just shuts down. Just shuts down. My
I
wife and I
think
were
that is
walking
so wise.
it's wisdom. It's smart. It's the right thing to do.
Do you have a favorite quote from Jesus that helps you in your life?
I do. I actually wrote it down. I'm looking for it right here. It's a new command I give you: love one another as I have loved you. You must love one another. And I love this quote because it is a command. It is not a suggestion. He said, "A new command I give you." You know, we're used to the 10 commandments, but a new command. A command is an order. It is a demand. It is a directive. Jesus was unflinching in that. Unflinching and love one another, not unflinching and you must belong to this tribe or this social group of class, not unflinching in that you must follow these rules and must pray these many times a day, but unflinching is that you must love one another, not love according to the ceiling that you have on love or love according to the rules that you have. You must love one another as I have loved you. As I have loved you. And when people need context in terms of what Jesus says, well, I have loved you, Jesus in his crew, a guy named Paul, who was formerly Saul, was a Christian killer on behalf of the state. You know, like think about that. You know, and oftentimes I get in trouble because I try to understand situations from the totality of them. I try to get more perspectives because I don't. You know, I thought one of the most courageous things I've seen was Dick Gregory be so against the death penalty that he petitioned for a white supremacist not to be killed. That's loving one another as Jesus has loved us. And that's a love I am attempting to understand and enable myself to, because I'm not there, but it is a journey that I'm gladly on.
You know, we sometimes just reduce Dr. King to I have a dream. I would like you to tell me about what your thoughts are about that speech, but then also we just heard an excerpt by the wonderful Anna Deavere Smith of Letter from a Birmingham Jail, and I would like you to talk about the two different kings that are expressed in those two different pieces of writing, both of which are eloquent.
So I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. King's from Atlanta, Georgia. He was a middle-class child. His parents were of means. His father was a minister of one of the most powerful churches in Atlanta, Ebenezer Baptist Church. He grew up amongst the Black middle class and bourgeoisie. He had an opportunity to be as selfish and narcissistic as he wanted to be, and he chose not to. He chose, much like Christ, to sacrifice his life for the betterment of those that were the sick, the shut out, the downtrodden. And I don't just mean Black people. You know, he was for the poor across the board. Many people know he's celebrated for his I Have a Dream speech. And Dr. King's speech is used as propaganda in our schools, for television commercials, for our government. But people don't know, and they probably should look at a documentary called King in the Wilderness. I was fortunate enough to be mentored by his direct lieutenants, people who work with him, Andrew Young, James Orange, Joseph Lowry. These men were James, with Andy still being alive, with the other two, were my friends and mentors, John Lewis included. So I got the real deal. And in the real deal, he died reviled. He died without a fortune. He died disdained by his former followers. The bourgeoisie that had funded him now denied him. He chose the path of self-sacrifice for people who were oppressed in spite of all that. And that's a heavy burden to have to carry. And as a young man, to have done that at a time when he didn't have to always intrigued me. If you look at the King from I Have a Dream, it's aspirational. It's what is possible when we all decide to finally do it. It's not as far as we want to believe. It's just around the corner if we make the right decision. But you don't get that joy of aspiration and that daring if you don't get the King that sits in a Birmingham jail cell alone and contemplates other ministers saying that you're causing too much trouble. You need to, pull it back a little bit. it doesn't account for Black business people that begin to take funding from it. It doesn't account for Negro leaders that were against him speaking up. It doesn't account for the white liberal who say, hold on, maybe you went too far with this one, Martin, and pulling their allyship back. And that Dr. King is a lot more challenging to get your head around, because that Dr. King is a man that is not perfect. He is a man that is flawed. He is as human as you and I was. He had all the instincts that we did, and he repeatedly chose to go further and further down a course that would eventually lead up to a bullet in his chest and him dying in Memphis, Tennessee, because he was doing work on the behalf of the unions. No matter your color, if you remember the union, he was doing work on the behalf of poor people. No matter your color, race, ethnic origin, it was for poor people. That is a Christ-like methodology in a way that you don't see today on national scale in the way that it deserves to be, with the exception of a few ministers out there.
He also was coming out strongly against the Vietnam War.
Yes, that got him in a lot of trouble.
Johnson's war, and he needed Johnson for legislation.
Yes.
But he also knew at a time when we had a draft, it was the young Black people who were going to be going and not being able to find deferments. I feel like the Birmingham jail was like his Gethsemane.
Wow.
Did it surprise you? You mentioned being from Atlanta, Georgia, and you just had a triumphant Senate race that you helped elect 2 Democrats, including the present minister of Ebenezer Baptist Church, where King presided for many, many years. Do you think the victories that you helped achieve in Georgia, can this be replicated in other states in the South?
Yes, it absolutely can. 55% of African Americans already live in the South. I think I read an article today, and I forgot who wrote it. I'm sorry, I can't mention it, but it talks about a reverse Great Migration. There needs to be a migration back to the South, and it needs to be African Americans. You need to come home. A lot of you guys are in New York, Philadelphia. A lot of you guys are out west. You guys have land already at home. You got cousins in Philadelphia signing off on land sales that have never been in Louisiana. You have 400 or 500 acres. You should come home. You should come home. You should come home. You should come home. You have political power here. There's economic opportunity here. You have the power to plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize in Birmingham, Charlotte, Tampa, Jacksonville, Columbia, Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana, Homer, Houston, Texas, Dallas. And if we do that, and if we create strong communities, what we start to do is we start to not only strengthen ourselves as a community, it strengthens the greater community as well. So I want to encourage people to take a migration and come home.
There's another way that you're addressing and helping people. You mentioned Andrew Young a little while ago. You and Andy Young, who was a colleague of King's.
Yes.
You have partnered on a bank.
Yeah, banking. Yeah.
So tell me about that. But you got to promise me you're never going to become a mean banker.
No, I'm not going to do that. All right, so my grandparents thought it important that me and my sisters bank Black, right? We Black people, have only been out of apartheid in this country. Jim Crow sounds cute. Sounds like you're talking about the Animaniacs or something, but Jim Crow is apartheid. We're only 57 years out of apartheid, which means my parents were born in apartheid. So I didn't understand why my grandparents were adamant about having a Black bank account. They were adamant about our pediatrician being Black. They were adamant about identity. It was just certain things you just like, is everything Black? Why do we have to go to this Exxon? But what we didn't understand was we had been excluded from resources so much that, much like she told my daughter, be independent. Don't even depend on your drunk daddy on the sofa. The country called America is the drunk daddy on the sofa for Black folks. And we need to make sure that we have a level of independence. And what I mean is corporations not only took grocery stores out of Black communities, they took banking institutions out of Black communities. So the same way you would used to go get fresh produce, fresh meats, canned goods, and able to fix a sensible dinner that kept you and your family healthy. Now you were going to whatever dollar store you could afford or whatever corner store, you're getting stuff with plastic wrappers, all types of additives that were bad for you. And you saw the results of that, right? taking banking institutions out of our communities did the same thing. We were left with check cashing places, liquor stores, buy here, pay here, title lenders. Andy went to India and saw how a card that they were giving out that would be comparable to a debit card of sorts. It didn't have extra fees and things attached to it. It allowed women who wanted to save yarn or make silk things, they could save extra money. They weren't being robbed or extorted with a percentage for cash in a check. Excuse me, for cash in a check. His son, Bo, Ryan Glover, Paul Judge, and he invited me into the circle of founders to be a part of starting a banking platform that acts like a PayPal or like a Chime, but actually has the banking incentives where it partners with Black banks and other larger banks to give people who are unbanked actual accounts. And I just thought that was an amazing thing to do. I've been pushing the line for Black banking for over 6 years. I'd never been offered an opportunity to partner with a bank, nor had I sought or asked one. When I could have sat down with banks and say, I'm going to promise you these many thousands of accounts, I'm going to take this much off accounts. I never took that advantage. I never did that because my intentions were always to simply get us on the path that my grandparents put me on, the path of independence. However, I'm a businessman and I'm not crazy. So when I got an opportunity to sit down and see how this would help my community, this was a good service and product for them, and I could get in on the ground floor and be a founder, sit on the board, and actually learn business as I go, I took advantage of that, and I am proud to be a founder of Greenwood. I'm proud to later this year be bringing a product that I think is going to help the unbanked, help in particular Black and Latino people in poor and working class neighborhoods. And I think it adds something new to the market that makes the market more competitive. And I can tell you, for instance, when we did Black banking 6 years ago, Wells Fargo found $60 million for Black mortgages, not for people of color mortgages, not for disenfranchised people, not for Black mortgages. And within us announcing Greenwood and pushing the Black banking campaign more, I've seen a major bank that I do business with, Chase, pick up people like Kevin Hart, pick up people like Serena Williams. I've seen Chime use 21 Savage. So to me, no matter where you go, as long as you have people there representing us in front of and behind that camera, getting the opportunity to be a part of the banking system, I think that is for the better.
You have said to me, and I accept this premise, that Black Americans are owed a debt.
Yes.
And I think what a lot of white Americans want to know or want help with is how is that achieved?
Well, before I give you what I think we should do, let's do this. Let's agree that 1619 and the bringing of the first enslaved Africans here are the cornerstone to the wealth that this country was built on. And you don't get America without an explosion of cotton and tobacco. You just don't. You don't get rich. You don't get rich quick without doing something illegal. That was true if you're Joe Kennedy or Prescott Bush, right? Yeah. So as a nation, it doesn't,
Let me just interrupt you for 1 second to say, as I was watching videos of those hooligans storming the Capitol, I heard one of these white guys say, "This is ours. We built it."
Yeah, and I'm like, no, you didn't. Like in the literal, Benjamin Banneker remembered the layout of the city after the French got left. After the guy was like, "Foutoir, I am gone." Like it was that, and then when it was burnt down, we built it back, and we built the first. So it's like, so. And Baldwin always encourages Black and white Americans to understand we have a shared history. And in that shared history, right, there not the Black history, the white history, the shared American history, we have been wrong. And not wrong like, oh, you slapped us, that was wrong. Not wrong like we used it for a few hundred years, that was wrong. Wrong like we have never been given full opportunity to partake in this grand experiment called America. And because of that, I believe this country, as great as it is, still is fundamentally behind where it could possibly be. Mm-hmm. Black people gave you the stoplight, the gas mask, refrigerated trucks, the self-oiling railroad thing, the monkey wrench, like so many things that corporations make billions of were started in the minds of the people who had to do the work. I would argue the cotton gin was not invented by a white guy. Why? Because he wasn't picking cotton. You know what I mean? I think that we owe John Connor, God bless the dead, John Conyers, we owe him a real push at HR 40. which is a bill that would study what reparations are due to the people who've been denied the opportunity to fully participate in America. If we're only 57 years free, what were we denied by redlining in Chicago and places like that? What were we denied in the opportunity when the suburbs were built? There were literally land grant agreements that said Black people could not move to the suburbs, right? What were we denied in being denied the GI Bill? What were we denied by being used as sharecroppers, and not to mention slavery? So I think that this country has an amends to make. And by making that amend in terms of monetary, in terms of land ownership, in terms of education, higher education and trade, in terms of freedom from taxation for a number of years that would allow you to actually build business and be competitive in a capitalistic system. I think we're owed an array of those things, but I think first and foremost, we're owed that legislation that Congress had been fighting for since '89. If we atone for our original sin, if we atone for that sin, then I guarantee you we come out a more glorious and greater nation in the name of God than we have ever been before. But you must testify. Like that's what I learned in those small churches. You have to give it up to God. You have to release it. And enough of the nationalistic religion of white Anglo-Saxon Protestantism that says, well, everything is okay and fair now, because everything can't be okay and fair because you've not confessed your sins to Christ.
As we conclude here, the choir is now going to sing a song that I know has particular resonance for you, and that is Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. Can you tell us what meaning that has for you?
My grandmother and grandfather raised me. My grandmother, Betty Cluntz, again, was the granddaughter of an enslaved woman named Pearlie Mackey. Her mother, Tuzella Blackman, lived till I was 10, taught me how to sew a button on. My grandmother was one of the most deeply spiritual human beings that I met. She had been a very mean young woman. She had been a fighter and feisty. There was a legend in her family. She preferred working in the fields in the kitchen. And that's when I understand how truly she must have loved me that she cooked, because she detested the kitchen as a girl. She was a tomboy. But my grandmother died in my arms, walking up a hill. She looked at me, she looked up past me, and she was gone. And that probably affirmed my belief that there is something beyond this more than anything else, because at one point, I just didn't even know if there was anything beyond this. I didn't know if we were anything more than animals with clothes on that thought more of ourselves because we felt we could communicate on a higher level. But in that moment, my assurance and faith that whatever she had been trying to teach me through religion, whatever that being was, absolutely existed, because I saw it in her eyes. She looked at me, who she loved and adored. She looked past my shoulder. She smiled as though she was accepting an invitation. She put her arms around me and she fell in. And my thoughts as she lay there, gone, because it was in an instant with her, and as people were coming up, I was telling them to get the ambulance or whatever. The 23rd Psalm talks about laying down next to still waters. I thought about that because she was laying in grass. And this record, you know, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, coming for to take me home. She sang that so much in my life that I knew one day she was going to leave, but I didn't know it was going to be like that. And my sister said she died happy because she died with you. You were her favorite person. And I often listen to this record by myself and I cry because I think of her and I know that wherever she went, she's happy. I know that she knew after our final conversation, her job at raising an independent man was done. And I knew that it was time for her to go home. And I hope that whenever I am called to go home, that it is in a peaceful way as she was. And I hope that this is the song that plays whenever I meet her on the other side.
Michael,
yes.
Love and respect to you.
Love and respect. And have a dope day.
Have a dope day.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Love and respect. Thank you guys so much.
Coming for to carry me, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome
We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand.
We'll walk hand in hand one day.
Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe.
We'll walk hand in hand someday.
Oh, we are not afraid. We are not afraid.
We are not
shine.